The Spurs finished Summer League 4-1, but the record does not tell you who actually earned a role. San Antonio closed with an 86-81 win over Phoenix after going winless in Sacramento and then winning 4 of 5 games in Las Vegas. That turnaround was impressive, but July victories are not the real prize for a team coming off an NBA Finals appearance. The real question is whether anyone showed a skill Mitch Johnson can trust when the games count. By the end, we will identify the prospect closest to helping the NBA rotation, the two-way player who created the strongest case for an opportunity, and why Carter Bryant's ugliest minutes may have produced the most useful answer of the entire summer. The final win offered the first clue. 5 Spurs scored in double figures. San Antonio produced 42 points in the paint, and its bench outscored Phoenix's reserves 40-19. Miles Kelly led the team with 20 points, but the larger message was that the Spurs did not need one prospect to dominate the ball in order to function. That matters because none of these players will enter the regular season as a primary option. Their path depends on screening, defending, moving the ball, hitting open shots, and staying productive without guaranteed touches. Finishing 4-1 showed that the group could win in different ways, but it did not prove that every strong Summer League performance will translate. To separate real development from July noise, the evaluation has to begin with the player carrying the greatest expectations, Carter Bryant. Bryant arrived with a different assignment from almost everyone else. He had already spent a rookie season around an NBA Finals roster, so San Antonio did not need to discover whether he could simply survive against Summer League competition. The coaching staff used the setting to stretch his offensive responsibilities and ask him to create with the ball. The early result was uncomfortable. Against Atlanta, Bryant scored 12 points, but shot 4 of 13 from the field and 1 of 7 from 3. His handle was not sharp enough to consistently beat defenders, and he struggled to create separation when the first move was stopped. If that performance were treated as a normal audition, it would look like a warning. For the Spurs, however, it was a controlled test of the weakest part of his game, and the response mattered more than the initial struggle. In his next appearance, Bryant stopped forcing the game and began attacking the advantages that already existed. He scored 19 points against New York on 7 of 10 shooting, made both of his 3-point attempts, and finished his 2 Vegas games averaging 15.5 points. The difference was not simply that shots went in. Bryant looked more comfortable catching the ball with the defense already moving, using straight-line drives, attacking closeouts, and rising into controlled mid-range jumpers when defenders gave him space. He also displayed the strength that can separate him from other wings once he gets a shoulder beside a defender. One efficient game does not make him a self-creator, but it clarified the version of Bryant that can help San Antonio immediately. And that is where his so-called bad Summer League becomes much more encouraging than the box score suggests. The Spurs do not need Bryant to break down set defenses while Victor Wembanyama, De'Aaron Fox, Stephon Castle, and Dylan Harper are available. They need him to defend the opponent's most dangerous wing, run the floor, cut with purpose, punish open space, and make defenses pay for sending attention toward San Antonio's stars. Bryant reinforced that defensive identity with explosive recovery plays and averaged 2 blocks across his 2 Vegas appearances. His long-term ceiling will rise if his handle develops, but his short-term value depends on accepting a lower usage role and executing it with force. The on-ball experiment was still worthwhile because playoff lineups eventually force role players to make a second decision. Bryant now has a clearer development target without San Antonio confusing that target with what he must already provide next season. Terrace Reed Jr. offered a different kind of reassurance because his useful NBA role was visible almost every night. Reed averaged 7.7 points and 8.7 rebounds in only 23.1 minutes per game, production that immediately stands out in a guard-dominated environment. He created space with hard screens, used his size to dislodge defenders around the paint, and pursued rebounds on both ends without needing plays called for him. Those are exactly the possessions available to a center playing behind Wembanyama and Luke Kornet. Reed will not be asked to post up repeatedly or become a featured scorer. He will be asked to keep the offense organized with physical screens, finish simple chances, protect possessions, and survive defensively long enough for the main rotation to return. Summer League gave real evidence that he can handle the first 3 parts of that assignment. If this breakdown is useful, leave a like and subscribe, because Reed's biggest NBA question comes next. The defensive question remains open. Reed's feet were occasionally late when guards pulled him away from the basket, and NBA offenses will attack that weakness with far more precision. He also went through stretches in which he established deep position after a screen and never received the pass. That says something about the chaotic summer league environment, but it also limited the number of decisions San Antonio could evaluate from him as a finisher. The correct conclusion is not that Reed is ready for a permanent rotation job. It is that his rebounding, screening, and interior touch already give Mitch Johnson a credible emergency option if Wembanyama or Kornet misses time. His path is narrower than Bryant's, but it may be easier to define. The next question is whether San Antonio found anything equally useful much later in the draft. Jacoby Gillespie made the loudest statistical argument among San Antonio's two-way players. After beginning the summer in a severe shooting slump, he recovered to average 16.0 points, 4.2 assists, and 2.0 steals across 4 games in Las Vegas, while shooting 40% from the field. His three-point percentage finished at 30.8%, so the jumper was not consistently reliable, but his response was more important than a clean shooting line. Gillespie continued moving, created separation, reached useful areas of the floor, and organized possessions even when the shot was missing. His 25.5 assist performance against Utah showed the scoring upside, while his ball pressure showed how a 6'1" guard can compensate for limited size. He did not earn a place ahead of San Antonio's established guards, but he gave the organization a legitimate development plan, rather than just an interesting name. That plan should begin in Austin, where Gillespie can receive primary ball handling repetitions without taking touches from Fox, Castle, or Harper. His route to the NBA is not becoming a smaller version of one of those stars. It is proving he can enter a game, organize the second unit, defend the point of attack, and punish teams that leave him open. The 2 steals per game are encouraging because defensive activity gives him a way to contribute when his jumper is cold. The 4.2 assists show that his possessions do not have to end with his own shot. But the 30.8% from 3 also defines the pressure point. Against NBA size, defenders will go under screens until he makes them regret it. Gillespie's summer did not solve that question. It earned him enough attention for San Antonio to keep asking it. Maliq Brown may have produced the most transferable specialist skill on the roster. He averaged only 5.2 points, but he also collected 6.2 rebounds and an extraordinary 2.8 steals per game. Brown's hands repeatedly disrupted plays under the basket and inside passing lanes, while his length allowed him to rotate as a help defender and switch across multiple positions. That combination creates a possible small ball center role, even though he still needs more strength to absorb NBA contact at the 5. The offensive ceiling remains uncertain. Brown made a few outside shots and showed enough feel as a connector to keep the possibility alive, but defenses will demand proof before respecting him away from the paint. If the jumper develops, he can become a flexible 4-5 defender. If it does not, his screening, passing, and finishing must become efficient enough to prevent his defense from being neutralized by spacing problems. Then there was Hyunjung Lee, the unexpected scorer who forced his way into the conversation. The 6'8" wing averaged 9.2 points in 15 minutes across 4 Vegas games, but one performance explained the appeal better than the average. Against Utah, Lee scored 22 points and made 4 of 7 attempts from 3, giving San Antonio instant spacing from the bench. He is not an explosive athlete, and one hot shooting night cannot erase the defensive and physical questions that determine whether a specialist stays on an NBA floor. Still, size and shooting are always worth developing. Lee may not have secured an NBA contract with this run, but he gave the Spurs a clear reason to consider keeping him in their Austin pipeline or bringing him into camp. That is a meaningful summer league victory for a player who began outside the main roster conversation. The most frustrating part of San Antonio's summer was not one individual performance. It was how often the environment made useful evaluation more difficult. Guards attacked crowded lanes, forced contested shots, and ignored big men who had established position after screens. Reed could seal a smaller defender and never see the ball because another player was trying to create a highlight. That is common in Summer League, where players are competing for jobs inside lineups assembled for only a few weeks, but it produces a dangerous illusion. A missed shot can look like a prospect problem when the possession was broken before he touched the ball, while a difficult make can reward a decision that would get someone removed from an NBA rotation. The Spurs therefore have to evaluate repeatable actions, not simply points. and the Phoenix finale supplied an important counterexample. With many of the most discussed prospects no longer carrying the night, San Antonio still beat Phoenix by generating paint production and bench balance. The Spurs shot 45.6%, placed 5 players in double figures, and closed the game on a 12-7 run after the Suns tied it late. That does not predict how any individual will perform in October, but it shows that the staff built enough structure for different players to contribute without one star rescuing every possession. For a contender, that is the organizational value of Summer League. The goal is not to manufacture a July superstar. It is to teach players how their skill fits into a larger system, identify which weaknesses require Austin repetitions, and create emergency options before injuries force the NBA coaching staff to search for answers during the season. The resulting hierarchy is much clearer now. Bryant is the player closest to earning meaningful wing minutes because his defense, strength, and off-ball scoring already match what the main roster needs. Reed is the most realistic frontcourt insurance because his rebounding and screening can earn him spot minutes without changing the offense. Gillespie made the strongest case among San Antonio's two-way players and should develop as a lead guard in Austin while preparing for emergency NBA possessions. Brown displayed the most intriguing defensive specialist skill and should be developed as a switchable 4-5, with his jumper determining how quickly that experiment can advance. Lee turned himself into a player worth monitoring because shooting at his size gives him a path. None of those conclusions require pretending that Summer League competition is the NBA. They connect each player's best repeatable skill to a real San Antonio need. And that delivers the real verdict on the Spurs' 4-1 run. The biggest winner was role clarity. San Antonio did not uncover another franchise star, and it did not need to. Bryant should attack advantages rather than manufacture them. Reed should screen, rebound, and finish. Gillespie should organize the offense and pressure the ball. Brown should disrupt actions across positions, while Lee should stretch the floor. The bad possessions exposed their limitations, but those limitations also prevented the organization from assigning the wrong roles. If even 2 of these skills translate, the Spurs will enter next season with more internal insurance when injuries, foul trouble, or difficult matchups create an opening. That is more valuable to a finals contender than an undefeated July record. And if you want to understand why these supporting roles matter at the top of the roster, watch our breakdown of how San Antonio may be using De'Aaron Fox incorrectly. It explains why every player around him could look different if the Spurs finally unlock their primary creator.